I'm 35, and I count things for a living. Hours, invoices, deductions, all of the quiet arithmetic of other people's lives. Numbers don't lie. People do sometimes without meaning to, and sometimes on purpose. It was a Thursday night at 11:47 p.m., the kind of hour when apartment buildings go soft and reverent, as if every wall is holding its breath. I just set down 2 steaming cups of tea on our coffee table, queued up the show we pretend to watch together, and kicked off the heels that had punished me through a 14-hour end of quarter sprint. The city hummed through the windows. Our place felt like it always did, tidy over, scented with the candle Mason likes to call the hotel lobby. My phone lit the room like a match. A message from Mason, my boyfriend of 3 years roommate for one. The photo loaded first. Tessa, his ex, glistening and smiling bicep carved like a parenthesis. Gym mirror cropped tank abs captioned themselves. Then the text slid in beneath it with the efficiency of a paper cut. Wish you were more like her. Look how she takes care of herself. If humiliation had a temperature, it would be exactly the degree between lukewarm dinner and a cooling forehead. I stared at the screen long enough for the Netflix idle animation to scold me. Somewhere in the building, water ran through pipes like distant applause. I typed 2 words back, "Me too." He read it instantly, left the message there like a dropped fork. People tell stories about the one moment that changed everything, how a single decision rewrote their weather. But it almost never feels like thunder at the time. It feels like standing in your living room with your shoes off your dinner, getting cold, and the person who knows your social security number sending you a thirst trap of the woman he used to sleep with. I know things about Tessa that Mason doesn't. Not secrets, public math. A friend of mine works at her company. She's single. She dates around. Great shape. Yes. Great discipline. Yes. Also makes 40% less than me according to her own brag post salary band. Studio apartment, no car, travels light. All valid life choices. But Mason didn't send the resume. He sent the abs. Here's what Mason doesn't know about me. I was raised by a father who kept every warranty in a labeled folder and a mother who believed you can rebuild anything as long as you're willing to dismantle it first. I know how to put a life on the table, unscrew its spine, and decide what goes back. The pad see yegu turned glossy with a skin of cool. I lifted the chopsticks anyway, ate 2 bites out of principle. Then I stood, carried both cartons to the fridge, and cleared the coffee table like a stagehand who just heard the director whisper, "We're changing the scene." Friday morning, I called in sick for the first time in 2 years. The word sick tasted accurate in my mouth because something in me had definitely ended. I drove to the gym I had passed 100 times and signed the premium membership contract with a pen so heavy it felt ceremonial. Trainer included. Baseline assessment. A woman named June circled numbers on a clipboard and told me I had the back strength of a superhero and the hip mobility of a desk chair. We laugh the way women laugh when the truth is both kind and merciless. Then I went to a salon with frosted windows and let a stranger wash the office out of my hair. The clippers sang. The mirror delivered a face I recognized but hadn't chosen in a while. I texted my boss returning Monday. 40-hour cap going forward. I'll protect deliverables. She replied with a thumbs up and a ... that said we'd negotiate later. When I got home, Mason was angling his tie in the hallway mirror. He looked surprised, like I'd stepped off a plane unannounced. "You're home, I thought you had that big client review." "Took a personal day," I said. "Thought I'd try being more like her. She posts gym stories at 10 a.m. on weekdays. Doesn't seem crushed by overtime." He winced. "That's not what I meant, and you know it." "Explain it to me," I said, gentle as a scalpel. He made a vague motion at my body, at the air around it. "Just, you've let yourself go a little." "Tessa still looks amazing," I finished for him. "She does." He relaxed as if agreement were an apology. "See, I just want you to prioritize yourself more." "Me too," I said again, and watched him miss the echo. He kissed my cheek already, late already absolved. The door clicked behind him, and the quiet stepped back into the apartment with me. Here is a truth I didn't say out loud. I had gained 15 pounds since we met. Another truth. I was working 60-hour weeks to fund our life the apartment he picked, because it had better light the vacations he planned, but didn't budget the car note I covered when he was between jobs for 4 months. I had been carrying us so gently, he thought he was floating. Prioritize yourself more, he said. So I did. I set alarms for 5:40 a.m. and 9:30 p.m., like parentheses around my days. I meal prepped on Sunday with the clinical affection of a lab tech. I blocked my calendar like a fortress and answered emails in batches instead of bleeding for them. I posted a single mirror photo at the gym. Nothing thirsty. The caption was a line from my mother. You can rebuild anything, and because being like Tessa is not just macros and lunges, but a lifestyle Mason romanticizes without understanding. I added something else. I stopped funding his extras. No more. Can you Venmo me for my nails? I'll pay you back. He didn't. No more Starbucks, declined. Can you spot me? No more yoga packages. We'll share that I never used. We had moved in on a 50-50 agreement. Somehow, my 50 had grown a wild garden. I pruned it with kindness and a spreadsheet. The first time he felt it, it was small. Babe, can you pick up my dry cleaning? I'm slammed. I've got training at 6, I said. You'll have to swing by after work. He blinked. But you pass it on your way home. I pass a lot of things, I said, smiling. Want me to send you a reminder? He laughed, confused at the new shape of me. That week, I did something I haven't told anyone before now. I opened a blank workbook and titled it Restorations. On the first tab, I started itemizing every expense I'd covered beyond our agreed split. Not out of pettiness, out of clarity. Numbers don't lie. People do sometimes without meaning to. On Thursday, my friend invited me to a networking night for social impact orgs at a brewery with Edison bulbs and earnest playlists. I almost said no. My body wanted the couch. Instead, I went on principle. Somewhere between the artisanal pretzels and a panel about corporate sponsorships, I met Carlos. He was at a narrow high top with a trifold poster talking about a literacy program like it was a person he loved. He had the kind of attentiveness that makes you feel like your sentence is the only one in the room. You're the numbers person, he asked after we were introduced. We keep trying to make our budget do parkour. I can keep it on the ground, I said. Maybe even teach it to walk in a straight line. We laughed. He didn't look at my body like a project. He looked at my face like an answer. We exchanged numbers strictly for the fundraiser, and I meant it. The line felt like a railing I could hold onto while the room tilted. On my way home, I caught my reflection in the dark window of the train, tired yes, but steadier. My phone buzzed. Mason again, a reel of Tessa sprinting uphill, captioned Discipline Motivation. I stared at the glass. My face did not change. My posture did. Back at the apartment, he asked if I could cover dinner. His card had glitched. I plated leftovers and handed him a fork. He looked at the food like it had personally insulted him. This is cold, he said. I'm warm, I said. Sit. Eat. He poked at the noodles. Why are you being weird? I could have said, because you weaponized your ex's body to coach mine. I could have said, because clarity feels like cruelty to someone accustomed to your kindness. Instead, I said, I'm taking your advice. He frowned about what prioritizing myself. He laughed, but it sounded like a cough. I meant the gym. I heard you, I said. And I'm listening. He didn't realize that listening meant I'd finally stopped translating his wants into my sacrifices. Before I slept, I added a second tab to restorations. I named it Exit. Not because I was leaving, not yet. Because if a fire starts in your building, you should know where the stairwell is. I closed the laptop. The candle burned down to memory. Somewhere between the heartbeats of the night, I understood that being more like her was never the point. Being more like me was, and that I'm afraid for Mason includes a talent for keeping receipts. When you stop mothering a man who's used to being fed, he calls it distance. When you start prioritizing yourself, he calls it attitude. Mason used both words in the first week. Every morning now, I woke at 5:40. The gym keycard became my new signature. The air smelled like effort and disinfectant, and the music was all bass and ambition. My trainer June called me Steel, half joking, half prophetic. The mirror began to show someone I recognized again. Not thinner, just clearer. I posted small updates. Never thirst traps, just timestamps of discipline. The captions were almost riddles. Monday 6:07 a.m. Rebuilding not proving. It got a few quiet likes from coworkers and one from a contact saved as Carlos fundraiser. Mason noticed the shift before he understood it. "You're glowing," he said one night, brushing past me on the way to the fridge. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." "I plan to," I said. But by week 2, the praise turned practical. "Can you skip the gym tomorrow? My mom's birthday brunch. We'll be late if you go." "I already RSVP yes to June," I said, "and I don't cancel appointments." He laughed, uncertain. "You're really taking this self-care thing seriously?" "Yes," I said. "It's the first thing I've ever taken seriously that wasn't for someone else." Monday became my new Friday. A clean ledger line, no more unpaid overtime, no more answering Masons. "Can you handle this with sure?" My boss raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. My efficiency had sharpened since I stopped bleeding into other people's deadlines. I spent the reclaimed hours learning to cook food. I could name every ingredient of writing in a notebook I'd ignored for years, and unexpectedly volunteering an evening each week to help Carlos's nonprofit with budget reviews. The first session we met in a co-working cafe, lined with plants too healthy to be real. Carlos showed me their books, disorganized but honest, and I built color-coded tabs while he told stories about students who'd learned to read through their after-school program. "You make numbers sound like mercy," he said. "That's because they are," I answered. "They tell the truth whether you like it or not." He smiled at that, the slow kind of smile that lands softly but stays. When I got home, Mason was on the couch scrolling through Instagram. "Who's Carlos?" he asked. "Volunteer coordinator for a literacy project," I said, slipping off my shoes. He turned the phone toward me. My gym selfie filled the screen. "He liked your post. He also liked our charities page, if that helps the math." "You don't even know him. I know how to read balance sheets," I said. "That's enough for now." The conversation thudded to silence. He wasn't jealous because he thought I'd cheated. He was jealous because I'd stopped asking permission to exist. By week 4, the domestic equilibrium cracked. He forgot to pay his half of the rent twice. When I asked, he said, "Babe, it's been a rough month. You know I'll Venmo you soon." "I've heard that one," I said lightly, but made a note in my restorations file tab 3 delinquent pledges. I'd stopped nagging him, stopped cushioning his falls, and it scared him, the quiet of accountability. At dinner one night, he tried to pivot. "You've been different," he said carefully. "I know. It's not bad. I guess you just feel distant." "I'm closer to myself," I said. "It's the same square footage, just rearranged." He frowned like I'd said something in another language. Thursday night, Carlos texted a photo of the fundraising venue. A modest hall with terrible lighting and good bones. "Think we can make it look less like a tax seminar?" "I can help stretch the decor budget," I replied. "And maybe the timeline, too." He sent a thumbs-up emoji and added, "Appreciate you more than you know." I stared at that message for a minute, not because of what it said, but because of what it didn't say. There was no flirtation, no agenda, just gratitude. A normal human emotion I hadn't been offered in months. Mason came home late drunk, loud, perfumed with gin and attention. "Went to happy hour," he said, tossing his jacket. "You never go anymore." "Happy hours end too soon for me," I said. He blinked. "What does that even mean?" "It means I've learned to enjoy the other 23. He rolled his eyes. "Don't get all cryptic philosopher on me. Just saying you used to be fun." "Fun," I repeated. "You mean available." "Same thing." He staggered toward the bedroom. I stayed in the kitchen, finished entering receipts from the fundraiser into a shared sheet, and scheduled a call with Carlos for Saturday morning. Mason mumbled something from the hall I didn't catch. I didn't ask him to repeat it. 2 days later, Carlos and I met in person at the hall again. We rearranged tables, set up the sound system, laughed over how awful the fluorescent lights were. At one point, he said, "You always look like you're solving something in your head." "I am," I said. "Must be nice to know what you're building." "It's terrifying," I said. "But yes." He looked at me a moment longer than polite, then nodded. "Whatever it is you're doing, great." That night when I came home, sore and smiling, Mason was waiting, arms crossed. "Where were you at the fundraiser venue? We had to with him with the team," I said. He scoffed. You're spending more time with that guy than with me because he actually thanks me for it. He stared, mouth parting like he'd misheard. You're seriously comparing us now? No, I said quietly. That's your specialty. Later in bed, he turned away when I reached for him. The distance between our backs felt like a state line. I looked at his shoulders and wondered how long it had been since I'd felt safe there instead of responsible. People think relationships die from cheating or lying. Sometimes they just starve from honesty withheld too long. I closed my eyes and whispered not to him, but to the room. Becoming her isn't the goal. Surviving him is. And in the dark, my phone buzzed. A message from Carlos got confirmation. Corporate sponsor approved. Couldn't have done it without you. I smiled small and guilty. Then I turned off the screen and wrote in my notebook, Phase 2 stability achieved. Emotional ROI pending. Because the accountant in me had already begun balancing the books of the heart. 2 months after Mason's late-night text, I was no longer the woman who came home to microwave dinners and unpaid gratitude. My calendar was carved clean: work, gym, nonprofit, sleep, order, balance, clarity. Funny thing about balance, it makes unbalanced people nervous. The fundraiser was set for Thanksgiving weekend, right in the crossfire of family obligations and small talk. Carlos and I were working overtime. Not romantic, just rhythm. His enthusiasm was kinetic. It made numbers feel like possibility. The night before the event, we stayed late at the venue, decorating string lights, rented linens, the scent of effort, and cheap coffee. He was crouched on the floor, taping down extension cords, when he looked up and said, "You ever get tired of fixing things for everyone else constantly?" I said, "So why keep doing it? Because if I stop, things fall apart." He smiled softly. Maybe let something fall, just to see what happens. I didn't answer, but the sentence followed me home like a shadow. The fundraiser night was chaos. Disguised as community caterers, late volunteers, lost donors milling with half-full glasses. I moved through the crowd, clipboard in hand, adrenaline and focus braided tight. At the halfway mark, Carlos handed me a mic. "You should do the thank you speech. You earned it." Public speaking used to paralyze me. But that night, standing under the lights, I said, "When you invest in people, not just numbers, returns multiply in ways no spreadsheet can measure." Applause, real loud, grateful. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught Mason's face at the back of the room, jaw tight, eyes narrow. He'd shown up uninvited, holding a bouquet that didn't match the decor. Afterward, as I packed donation envelopes, he cornered me by the catering table. "So this is what you've been so busy with," he said. "Yes," I said. "You could have RSVP'd like everyone else." I didn't know I had to compete with my cousin. The way he said compete made my stomach turn. "Mason, it's a charity event." He stepped closer. "You were glowing up there, like performing." "I wasn't performing. I was working with Carlos. Funny how you suddenly have time for that." I stared at him. "You wanted me to be more like your ex. I am fit, social, independent. This is the consequence." He laughed, sharp and bitter. "You know what? This isn't what I meant." "No," I said, "but it's what you started." The following week, Thanksgiving dinner became a silent battlefield. His parents adored Carlos, always had childhood golden boy, selfless, charming. Mason hated that. He carved turkey like it was a vendetta. Between bites, his mother asked about the fundraiser. "Oh, Amanda was incredible," Carlos said. "She reorganized our budget, landed 3 new sponsors. We exceeded our goal by 300%. I tried to demur, but the table was already buzzing. Mason froze mid-chew. "She did all that," his mom said. "You didn't mention it, Mason." He forced a laugh. "Guess it slipped my mind." Across the table, Carlos caught my eye and gave a small, respectful nod. That simple gesture felt like oxygen. On the drive home, the silence in Mason's car was static. "Then how long have you been hanging out with him?" "We don't hang out. We collaborate." He scoffed. "Collaborate? Cute word for flirting. Don't project, Mason." He slammed his hand against the steering wheel. "You're acting like some self-righteous saint. I'm acting like a woman who's finally respected." The rest of the ride was a single exhale that never ended. A week later, Mason suggested couples therapy. Part of me almost admired the performance, how he could play the victim so sincerely. I agreed, curious what a neutral witness would see. The therapist, Dr. Patel, listened for 15 minutes before asking him, "So you sent your partner a photo of another woman and told her to be more like her?" He shrugged. "I was just trying to motivate her." Dr. Patel's eyebrow barely twitched. "Would you feel motivated if she sent you photos of her ex, saying she wished you looked more like him?" Silence thickened. I almost felt sorry for him, almost. Dr. Patel turned to me. "Amanda, what do you need right now?" I hesitated, then said, "Clarity." She nodded. "Then stop negotiating your worth." That sentence landed like a verdict. When Mason refused individual sessions the following week, said he didn't need fixing, I knew therapy had already done its job. I started planning the exit quietly, like drafting a merger. Moved passwords to my name, separated bank accounts, triple-checked the lease. I was no longer reacting. I was repositioning. Mason still hadn't noticed. He was too busy pretending the storm was over. He started buying groceries again, leaving notes that said, "Miss your smile." I almost smiled reading one. Then I remembered how it felt to receive that gym selfie, and my chest turned to stone. Carlos, meanwhile, sent updates about their next project, a 5K charity run. His texts were light, respectful. "You make things better." Hope Mason knows that. He didn't, but soon he would. Because when you give someone every chance to value you, and they choose comparison, instead, the most polite thing left to do is leave the receipt on the counter and lock the door behind you. By December, the air inside our apartment felt different, like it knew something was ending before we did. The windows fogged faster. The silences stretched longer. Even the walls seemed to brace for impact. I'd stopped explaining my schedule to Mason. He stopped pretending to understand it. We orbited one another like exes who hadn't signed the paperwork yet, but I had notarized and everything because when you love an accountant, you should know she keeps her heartbreak in spreadsheets. The fundraiser's success snowballed 300% of the original goal national sponsor interest articles, quoting Carlos and Amanda McInnes, financial director. When Mason saw one of those posts, his expression folded into something between disbelief and rage. "You didn't tell me they were calling you that. I didn't know they would. You're not their financial director." "I'm now," I said quietly. "Unofficially, at least." He threw the phone on the couch. "You're doing this to punish me." "Punish you?" I asked. "By doing work I'm proud of. You know what I mean, parading around with Carlos?" I tilted my head. "Working with Carlos. You keep adding verbs that aren't there." That was when he crossed the line, not with violence, but with contempt. "Don't play coy, Amanda. Everyone can see it. You're trying to make me jealous." I looked him dead in the eye. Why would I want a reaction from a man who thinks humiliation is a love language? The next morning, I printed something. 2 copies, one for him, one for me. It was a notice to vacate. Legal, polite, dated. He found it on the counter after work. "What is this, 30 days? I said you can stay until the end of the month. Then I'd like my home back. You can't just evict me. We live together. Your name's not on the lease." "Are you serious right now?" "As serious as you were when you sent me another woman's body as motivation." He laughed, desperate, wild. "You're insane." "No," I said, handing him a stapled printout. "I'm organized." The second document was worse for him. A full financial ledger of our relationship. Every rent shortfall, every spot me until payday, every brunch and birthday gift I'd quietly absorbed. Total $47,832. "You tracked this." "I track everything that drains me," I said. "That's psychotic." "No, that's accounting." He threw the pages down, muttering, "You think you're so superior." "No," I said softly, "just done." 2 days later, Mason's sister Rebecca called. "Hey," she started, falsely sweet. "Mason says you owe him for stuff he bought for the apartment, coffee maker, pillows, that kind of thing." "I have receipts," I said. "He's welcome to collect whatever he actually paid for. The total won't reach $20. Rebecca hung up. An hour later, I got a text from Mason. "You'll regret this. You're throwing away 3 years." I stared at the screen. Then I typed back one line. 3 years of what? No reply. Days blurred into a rhythm of self-preservation. Gym work, sleep, no more fights, no more explanations. I blocked him on social media, but not before watching him post a half-naked mirror selfie captioned "Leveling Up," Some people can't handle growth. I didn't even roll my eyes. I just took a deep breath and folded the last of his laundry into a box labeled Final Inventory. The last straw came one Saturday afternoon. I was at a cafe with Carlos finalizing the grant report when Mason walked in. Not a coincidence. He'd clearly been checking my location. He strode over loud enough to turn heads. "Really?" he sneered. "This is your new boyfriend." Carlos looked up calm as weather. "We're working, Mason." Mason snorted. "Yeah, I bet." I stood. "Stop." He ignored me, eyes locked on Carlos. "You know she's using you right. She always needs someone to fix her." Carlos stood two taller, quieter. "I don't fix people," he said. "I just respect them." For a moment, everything froze. The hiss of the espresso machine, the hum of quiet scandal. Then I said, "Mason, leave." He hesitated. "I mean it before I call security." He left cursing under his breath, the bell above the door jangling like applause. Carlos exhaled. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "I just didn't expect the performance." "He's scared," Carlos said gently. "People act cruel when they feel replaced." "He wasn't replaced," I said. "He was released." That night, I updated restorations. LSX tab 5, closure initiated. Under status, I wrote in progress. Then, for the first time since this all began, I slept through the night without waking once to check the locks or my heart rate. Because the truth is, endings don't always announce themselves with explosions. Sometimes they whisper, "You're free now." And that's louder than any apology could ever be. You'd think a notarized eviction notice and 30 days of silence would end a story. But Mason wasn't the kind of man who could accept the word done if he didn't say it himself. He decided to rewrite my ending and failed spectacularly. The audacity phase. 2 weeks before move out, I came home from basketball with June to find the door unlocked. Inside on my couch, drinking my sparkling water and watching my TV, was Tessa. Yes, that Tessa. The ex in the famous gym photo. Mason was beside her smirking like a man proud of his worst idea. "Look who dropped by." He said she needed a place to crash. Tessa stood immediately, awkward smile twitching. "He said you were cool with it." "I'm not," I said. "She's between apartments," Mason said quickly. "Thought you'd be compassionate." I took one slow step forward. "You don't live here, Mason. Guests need permission." "She doesn't have it." Tessa blinked at him. "Wait, you said he lied?" I said again. Silence. The kind that eats air. Tessa grabbed her bag. "Yeah, I'm going to go." When the door clicked shut behind her, I turned to him. "You just humiliated yourself in surround sound. You can't kick me out and make me look bad. I didn't make you do anything. You built this mess one ego brick at a time." He looked almost childlike for a second. "You'll regret this, Amanda. No one will believe you about what? The receipts, the lease, the spreadsheet." I gestured to the folder on the counter. "Believe me, Mason paperwork always wins." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. The family fallout. 3 days later, the family group chat detonated. A cousin screenshot it for me. Patricia Mason's mom can't believe Amanda stole her cousin's boyfriend. Gloria Carlos's mom can't believe your son sent thirst traps of his ex to his girlfriend. Then Grandma Megan 84. Didn't Mason do the same thing to Andrea's fiancé back in college? Chat went silent. 5 minutes later, Andrea herself entered. "Thank you, Grandma. Been waiting 10 years. I laughed so hard I cried. For once, the truth didn't need defending, it had witnesses. The replacement phase. By the time Mason's 30 days ended, Carlos and I were still just friends. We texted coordinated donation receipts, attended a few board meetings. No flirting, no scandal, just relief. Then one evening, after a long meeting, he walked me to my car and said, "You look peaceful lately. That's what freedom looks like," I said. He smiled. "Keep it. Don't trade it for anyone, not even me." It was the gentlest thing and one he had ever said to me. The crash! Mason refused to leave quietly. He posted online. Some people mistake self-respect for cruelty. Got a few pity likes, mostly from distant relatives. Then he sent me a final text. "If you date Carlos, you're dead to my family," I replied. "Then I guess I'm finally alive." He didn't respond. I boxed the last of his things. Old ties-worn sneakers, a mug that said "Number One Hustler." Left it outside the door with a note. Claimed assets delivered. Final balance settled. The accountant in me couldn't resist poetic bookkeeping. The shift. A month later, I ran into Carlos at the literacy center. He handed me a coffee and said, "You know, everyone's gossiping about us." I shrugged. They need new material. He laughed. "Maybe give them some." And then he kissed me. Not a firework, not a conquest, just something steady, deliberate, like a signature at the bottom of a clean page. The quiet after. People think revenge looks like destruction, but the best revenge is reconstruction. By March, Mason had moved in with a coworker. By April, that ended. By May, his posts turned spiritual. Sometimes losing everything is how you find yourself. Good for him. I genuinely hoped he would. Meanwhile, Carlos and I began seeing each other regularly, softly, privately. He never asked me to forget what I'd been through. He just made sure I never had to repeat it. One night, while updating a new spreadsheet for the nonprofit, I noticed my file list. Restorations. XLSX sat there unopened for weeks. I hovered over it, then right-clicked and selected Archive. Not delete, just stored away. Because every healed scar deserves to stay somewhere quietly proud of the pain it survived. When I turned off the laptop, Carlos was already asleep beside me, breathing slow, one arm draped across my waist. No tension, no scoreboard, no comparison. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was winning or losing. I just felt home. 8 months after that midnight text that detonated my old life peace became my new default setting. My mornings were soft now, oats and sunlight instead of alarms and apologies. The gym no longer felt like revenge. It felt like breathing. And when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the woman Mason tried to mold. I saw the one I rebuilt from scratch. Carlos and I had moved into a small house near the coast. White walls, creaking floors, quiet enough to hear yourself think. We split everything. Rent chores, laughter silence. He handled plants. I handled numbers. Fair trade. Sometimes he'd joke, "You sure you're done auditing people's souls?" And I'd laugh, "Only yours." Quarterly reports pending, the call before the storm. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. I was balancing the nonprofit's accounts when my phone buzzed Rebecca Mason's sister. I hadn't heard from her in months. She spoke fast, like ripping off a Band-Aid. "Mason's spiraling again. Thought you should know." "Why me?" "Because he's blaming you." I sighed. "Let him. It's a free country." Then she added quietly, "He found out about your pregnancy." Silence. Even though I'd only told close family and the board, no social posts, no announcements, it had traveled fast. Family always finds a way to weaponize news before you can celebrate it. "He's saying you did it out of spite," Rebecca whispered. I actually laughed. "I'm having a child out of spite. That's creative accounting even for him." She chuckled weakly. "I know, I just wanted to warn you. He's posting things." "I don't follow him anymore," I said, "and I don't plan to start." When I hung up, Carlos was at the door holding a grocery bag and that half smile that could calm a hurricane. "Everything okay?" "Just ghosts trying to stay relevant," I said. He kissed my forehead. "Let them haunt themselves." The barbecue? 2 weeks later, we hosted a family barbecue to share the news officially. Nothing dramatic, just burgers, music, and too much laughter. Halfway through, Carlos raised his glass. "Everyone, before the chicken burns, we have something to say." I placed a hand over my stomach. "We're expecting." The cheer was immediate. His mom cried. My dad forgot how to breathe. Cousins screamed like lottery winners. And somewhere on someone's phone, Mason's relatives were typing furiously in a group chat they'd regret later. I didn't care. For once, the future felt louder than the past. The fallout predictable but entertaining. 3 hours later, while washing dishes, I got a call from who else, Rebecca. Her voice was half apology, half laughter. "She's losing it," she said. "Who your favorite motivational speaker?" Apparently, Mason's latest ex had dumped him, and he decided to post a cryptic story. Funny how some people only find happiness when they destroy yours. Comments were brutal. Even his own cousin replied, or when they stopped funding it. By evening, Patricia the matriarch herself was messaging Carlos's mom to demand an explanation. She wanted to know how her family's reputation could survive such betrayal. To which Carlos's mom, Gloria, replied, "Maybe by raising sons who don't text Jim selfies of exes to their girlfriends." I didn't see the thread firsthand, but Carlos did, and he laughed so hard he almost choked on lemonade. "Your mother is a legend," I told him. "She learned from the best," he said, eyes glinting. The closure nobody expected. A week later, an email landed in my inbox. Subject spreadsheet template. It was from Mason. Short Polite said he was getting his finances in order and remembered I'd built a tracking system for the fundraiser. He wanted a copy. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then, without bitterness, I attached the file, added a brief note. "You'll find peace and structure." I did. He replied with a single line. "Thanks. Hope you're happy." I didn't answer. Some balances don't need closing, they just stop accruing interest. The morning after I went for a walk by the water, waves rolled in like they knew my name. Carlos walked beside me, one hand in mine, the other tracing gentle circles over my belly. He said, "Ever think about how it all started with a photo?" I smiled. "Yeah. One picture cost him a future and gave me mine." He stopped walking, looked at me. "Do you ever miss the old life?" Sometimes, I said honestly, but only the parts of me I hadn't met yet. We stood there quiet. The wind smelled like salt and forgiveness. If anyone's reading this hoping for a grand revenge finale, sorry. The best revenge was never about winning. It was about peace. And peace, unlike Mason, doesn't text at midnight demanding attention. It just stays.